I've been thinking a lot about how easy it is to stay stuck in a mindset that feels safe just because it's familiar. When things keep going wrong, when you feel like people don't get you or life just doesn't seem to click, it's almost natural to start seeing yourself as the one who always gets left behind, the one who always gives more, the one who always loses. And you tell yourself, I'm just going through a lot. But at some point, you're not going through it anymore. You're living it. And that's something I had to learn the hard way. I'm Selma, and in this video, I want to talk about something I've experienced firsthand. How the victim mindset doesn't always look like crying or breaking down. Sometimes it looks like being too self-aware, too stuck in the story of what happened to me, too surrounded by people who never challenge you to move forward because your sadness makes them feel better. So if you've ever been in the same situation, this video is for you. There's something I wish someone had told me earlier in life, something simple but honest. Maybe it would have saved me a few years of waiting. It's this: no one is coming to save you. It's not that people don't care or you don't deserve help. Life just doesn't work like the stories we were told when we were kids. You know, those stories where someone sees your pain, understands your silence, takes your hand and says, "Come on, let's fix this." We grew up believing that if we struggled enough, if we hurt enough, someone somewhere would appear and say the perfect words at the perfect time and make everything feel less heavy. And honestly, it's such a beautiful thought that one day someone will arrive, someone who just gets it, who sees past the smile you wear in public and recognizes the tired, lonely, quiet version of you that you don't show to anyone. But the truth is, that person, that moment, it doesn't always come. Sometimes the person you thought would save you ends up not seeing you at all. Sometimes people walk away when you need them the most. Sometimes they mean well, but they're busy, distracted, caught in their own mess. And sometimes you wait so long for someone to come and pick you up that you realize you've been standing still for months, maybe even years. Waiting becomes its own kind of habit. You start planning your healing around things that haven't happened yet, like an apology that never comes or a message that never gets sent. And you tell yourself, as soon as they realize what they did, I will be okay. As soon as someone sees how hard I've been trying, I'll finally get to rest. But what you're really doing is putting your life on pause until someone else presses play. I've spent nights staring at a phone that stayed silent, hoping for a message that would make all the confusion go away. I used to think that if one person, just one, took responsibility for the pain they caused me, then maybe I could breathe again. But that message never came. And when I finally stopped waiting, I learned something that honestly changed everything. Even if it had come, it wouldn't have fixed the real problem. Because even with the apology, even with the recognition, I'd still have been the one who had to clean up the emotional mess inside me. I'd still be the one waking up in the same bed with the same choices in front of me. No one else could decide to get up, to keep going, to try again. That was always going to be mine to do. And yeah, it's unfair, especially when you know that some of the pain you carry wasn't your fault, when people leave you without answers, when they promise to be there and then disappear, when people you love stop showing up for you without ever explaining why. It's easy to feel like the damage they caused should also be theirs to repair. But even if someone else broke it, you're the one left holding the pieces. And at some point, the question becomes, do I keep staring at the door waiting for them to come back and fix it? Or do I start building something new with what I've got? That doesn't mean you have to be cold or shut everyone out. It doesn't mean you never ask for help or that you have to do everything by yourself. It just means you stop sitting still. You stop waiting. You start walking, even if it's slow, even if your knees shake, even if the only thing you can manage today is brushing your teeth or opening a window for 10 minutes. Because those small, simple things, they matter. They stop your pain from taking over everything, and they remind your brain and your body that you are still here, still choosing to try. Eventually, someone might walk beside you, someone who brings peace instead of noise, but they're not coming to carry you. They're coming because you were already walking, and that's the difference. Starting on your own isn't romantic. It's heavy. It feels like dragging a suitcase that's too full and has no wheels, and every few steps you stop, drop it, sit down, cry, and ask yourself why it has to be this hard. But then you pick it up again and you keep going, and one day you notice that your arms are stronger. I'm not sitting here telling you that the moment you stop looking for external validation, your life changes, because nothing magically fixes itself the moment you stop waiting. Life still happens, people still misunderstand you, the bills still come, the world doesn't pause for your pain. But what does happen is that you start living again, not with a smile every day, but with a kind of quiet strength that grows from knowing deep down that you didn't give up on yourself, not even when it would have been easier to just wait forever. Some days you'll scroll through Instagram or TikTok and see people who look like they're constantly surrounded by love and support, and you will wonder if maybe you're doing something wrong. You will ask yourself, why do I always have to do this alone? Let that feeling come. It's okay, but don't let it build a home in you. People share the good moments. They don't always show the parts where they're also breaking inside. And I know, in a strange way, maybe my words feel like a kind of rescue, like someone finally saying, I see you. And if this helps you feel a little less alone, then I'm glad. But I don't want to be your rescue. I want to be a reminder, the one that says, you can do this. You've already done harder things than this. And your life doesn't start when someone chooses you. It starts when you choose yourself. Let's be real for a second. When people hurt you over and over, when they leave without explanation, when they lie, when they break your trust, something inside you starts to change. You stop asking, what did I do wrong? And you start thinking, maybe it's just me. Maybe the world is just built to crush people like me. It's not crazy to feel that way, actually. When pain becomes a pattern, you start expecting it. And when you expect it, you start seeing it everywhere, even when maybe it isn't. You flinch before anyone raises their voice. You assume rejection before anyone speaks. You prepare your heart for disappointment before life even decides what it's going to do next. And I get it, because after a while, reacting feels safer than hoping. Telling yourself they're all the same feels easier than wondering who you can trust again. You put your walls up and then you sit behind them and tell yourself you're just protecting your peace. But at some point, you're not leaving anymore. You're just reacting to everything. That's what the victim mindset does. It doesn't start as weakness. It starts as a way to survive, a way to protect yourself when everything feels out of control. At the beginning, it actually works. It gives you a reason for the pain. It gives you someone to blame. It gives you something to hold on to when the rest of the world feels like a storm. If you stay there too long, it stops protecting you and it starts holding you back. You go from being hurt to being stuck. You stop building, you stop dreaming, you stop taking chances. You're just sitting with your wounds, counting them over and over as if repeating the story will make it easier to carry. But while you're sitting there, life doesn't stop. It keeps moving, with or without you. There were moments when I told myself, why should I try again? People always leave. Nothing ever works out for me anyway. It felt safe. Safe to expect the worst, safe to stay small, safe to believe that if I kept telling the story of how life had failed me, I wouldn't have to risk failing myself. Because if you admit that maybe you have some power, even after all that's happened, then you also have to admit that now it's your choice what you do next. And that's scary, because choosing to move forward means you might get hurt again. Choosing to try means you might fail. Choosing to trust means someone might break that trust. So instead, we stay in the story, the one where everything happens to us, the one where we never had a chance. And that story becomes comfortable, even if it's sad. It becomes a place to hide. No responsibility, just pain, just reasons, just memories that explain why we gave up. Sometimes the victim mindset is the most beautiful prison we ever build, because it feels justified, it feels reasonable, it feels true, and no one questions it. People even nod and say, yeah, you've been through a lot. But while they nod, you're still not free. You're still behind that wall, watching life happen on the other side, convincing yourself that at least in here you're safe. But are you? Are you really safe if you're not growing? Are you really safe if you don't trust anyone? Are you really safe if you don't try anymore? Or are you just blocked in a room that you didn't choose, but now refuse to leave? Look, I'm not saying throw open all the doors at once and run. I'm saying just notice it. Notice when you're reacting instead of deciding. Notice when you're repeating the same story about how you were broken. Notice when you're using your past as a reason not to create your future. And if you notice it, that's the first step towards something better. You're not weak for building walls. You're not broken for being tired, but maybe you've been strong for long enough in the wrong way. Maybe now it's time to be strong in a new way. The kind of strength that says, yes, this hurt me, but no, it doesn't get to decide what I do next. You're allowed to change the story. You're allowed to choose more than just survival, because you're not here just to survive. You're here to lead. Speaking of the people who always nod when you fall into that victim mindset trap, let's linger on them for a moment, because their soft agreement can feel like the warmest blanket on a cold night, and yet turn out to be the very thing that keeps you from ever getting up to find the switch for the light. You know the type. They don't challenge your gloom. They don't ask what you plan to do next. They simply mirror your sights with a sympathetic tilt of the head and a gentle, I totally get it. The word is unfair. You're right to stay put until you're sure. On the surface, it looks like kindness, but if you stay in that space long enough, and especially if you start to climb out of it, you notice the undercurrent. What sounds like empathy can, in certain friendships, actually be quiet relief that you aren't about to outrun them. I learned this the slow, embarrassing way during what I once called my gap year. I told anyone who asked that I was getting to know myself better while I bounced from one anxious thought to the next, scrolling university websites at 3 a.m. and convincing myself that no program on earth felt like home. Every time I voiced that worry, those girls, friends since high school, the ones who knew every line of my self-doubt, would nod and tell me how wise I was for not jumping into something just to please other people. Their praise felt like safety. It also kept me exactly where I was, motionless, half scared, half proud of being so intentional. Meanwhile, those same friends were enrolling in majors they'd never even mentioned before, fields they freely admitted weren't passions but good options, and they were raking up credits, networking with professors, inching toward a diploma, steps that looked suspiciously like momentum while I was still circling the question of whether any diploma could ever represent my true self. I stopped romanticizing the pause, filled out the paperwork, and chose engineering, a path that demanded late-night problem sets instead of late-night overthinking. And in that single decision, I watched the group chat fall silent. The people who had once applauded my careful indecision vanished so quickly it was almost comical. No more check-ins, no more long messages, not even a good luck when I posted my acceptance letter. It hit me then, harder than any criticism could have, that my confusion had been their comfort. My staying in place had been their secret permission slip to keep coasting in programs they didn't love. You could say they were jealous or threatened or simply unable to stretch alongside me, but the result is the same. Their gentle nods were never meant to lift me out. And that realization, as painful as it felt, was strangely freeing, because it drew a bright line between the friends who cheer when you hesitate and the friends who cheer when you move, between the ones who need your uncertainty to feel ahead and the ones who will celebrate your sprint, even if it means you rush past them. Ever since, when I share a dream or a plan and someone's first instinct is an indulgent, take your time, don't push, maybe it's too ambitious, a small alarm rings in my head, reminding me that there's a big difference between genuine care and quiet sabotage. So if you notice that the voice is keeping you company in your stagnation, grow distant the moment you commit to something big. Interpret their silence as proof that you're finally stepping onto a road they never intended to travel. Let them drift, wish them well if you can, but keep walking anyway, because the version of you that second-guessed everything was valuable only to those who needed the reassurance that staying small is a reasonable lifelong plan, and you've already proven simply by choosing that you are done playing that part. Let's talk about the lucky girl mindset. You know, that term sounds cute, right? All glitter and angel numbers and I'm attracting everything I want vibes. But let me tell you what it really means to me. It means that whatever happens to me, good or bad, sweet or sour, is gonna end up working for me. Period. No exceptions. I'm at a point in life where, strangely enough, I feel lucky when someone tries to put me down. I feel lucky when a rumor floats by with my name bent out of shape. I feel lucky even when a grade comes back lower than I hoped, because each of those moments arrives packed with a kind of kinetic energy I can redirect into the exact corner of my life that needs reinforcement. Pain doesn't slow me down, it pays me back. That's what I mean when I say capitalize your pain. Don't just sit there feeling sad, scrolling, crying to your pillow every night. No, put the pain to work. Make it pay rent. Make it earn its keep. If I'm gonna suffer, at least let me get something out of it. A better grade, a stronger body, a banger of a YouTube video. Sometimes I literally say to myself, oh, this hurts. Okay, good. We're gonna use this. And I do. I turn it into motivation, into ideas, into stories that might help someone else. It's like emotional recycling. Today's betrayal becomes tomorrow's content. That's efficiency. Since I study engineering, I like to keep the picture simple. In physics class, they teach us that energy can't be destroyed, only changed. If a push of negative energy lands on my desk, I can let it sit there and rust, or I can melt it down and cast it into something useful. A group of friends accidentally forgets to invite me to something, cool. That's an evening I get back to review the things I've been putting off. Some girl says in that fake nice voice, oh wow, you're still doing YouTube? That's dedication. Yes, it is actually. And that passive comment, that's content. Literally, nothing disappears. It just shifts shape and I decide which shape it takes next. That leads us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it and yeah, see you in the next one. Bye.